Hello, 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 and welcome to the Penguins Collective Podcast. My name is Louie.
My name is Josh.
Oh, and we're two brothers who love to talk about hockey.
Especially the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Boy, do we have an episode for you. We have a special guest on the podcast today, Josh Getzoff, the play-by-play announcer for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's joining us. It's going to be an awesome episode. We got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Obviously, the Stanley Cup is happening. There's a lot of cool things that we want to talk about for the Penguins. We took a break, right, Josh? We had, all of May off. We had the first week of June off.
Yeah.
But now we're back in it. We're back into the zone. We're having interviews. We're understanding what the Penguins are probably looking. We got the draft coming up. So there's some more content that we're going to be doing. But right now, it's just about having fun. Just about having conversations. Isn't that right, Josh?
Yeah. And I mean, you'll hear Josh mention the date a few times. Like we recorded this on June 6th. I think it was. Yeah, June 6th. So we talk about the predictions for the Stanley Cup. I know it's ongoing right now. When this is released, we're probably in the midst of Game 5 going on. So, you'll hear Josh's predictions for that. We also talk about the NHL Combine and the NHL Draft coming up. Which, speaking of last year, I streamed live during the Penguins draft selection in the first round. Since the Penguins don't have a first round pick this year, we're going to sit this one out and we'll just do a draft recap wrap up episode once the complete draft is over. We'll go over everything. We'll butcher the draft selections names, and we'll find some snippets of what we can find and figure out, what the plan is for the future of the Penguins that Kyle Dubas has cooking up. But in the meantime, we got this episode with Josh. Like Louie said, we're going to try to put out some other content. We talk about a lot of stuff. Not a ton. It's an hour-long episode, approximately, give or take. But, probably 20 minutes is the Penguins. Then the rest is, life, NHL in general, hockey in general. Get a couple hot takes from Josh. Definitely a great episode.
It's a good one. It's a good one. And like I said, we just want to keep this intro pretty short because we want to make the focus the interview with Josh. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Before we do, here's a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Louie Enterprises. They create custom uniforms, custom apparel, and custom promotional products.
Just head on over to their website at www.leway.com. That's www.leway.com.
On to the episode.
All right, you see me now? Good?
We see you. You're good.
All right, let's rock.
What is it? Steel City shirt?
Yeah, Steel City. They actually made these up for me for my deck hockey tournament last year. They're the 2-point party on Fifth Avenue t-shirts.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. Limited edition. Very limited, like 10.
Not for
did
resale.
You do it again?
We're
the tournament?
We are postponing it this summer because my wife is pregnant. So,
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're expecting end of July. So, like, that kind of definitely puts a wrench in any kind of August event planning. So,
yeah, sure.
Yeah. You guys
Where
know.
was it held last year? Was it?
We've done it at the Bloomfield Deck Rink the last 2 years.
Okay.
It's actually it's been a perfect location because like there's not much going on there aside from that. So it's been nice to do it there. We live in Lawrenceville, so we're not really far away from it either. So it's pretty good.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty sweet.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's child number 2 for you guys, right?
Number 2. Yep.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah. You have how many?
I have 3 now.
Oh, wow. I remember there was one on the way the last time we talked.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So it's all 3 boys now, and just celebrated our oldest 6-year-old birthday yesterday. So
All right.
Whew,
We
time
don't know
flies.
what we're having, so like it could be two
Oh,
boys, could be a boy and a girl. We're going in totally blind, so
All the
should
way
be fun.
through.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep.
Nice, nice. We tried to do that. We caved. We caved halfway through with our last. We are like, we kind of have to know. So
Yeah, especially did you do it with the first two? You went blind with the first two, or
no.
no?
We wanted to know, just to like kind of get living
Yeah, yeah,
arrangements
yeah. Fair,
situated. But the
fair.
third, we kind of had everything all ready. So we're like, hey, let's just wait. And then I think it was literally one of the last ultrasound appointments where we're like, nah, screw this. Like, we want to know.
Yeah, I don't blame anybody for wanting to know.
Yeah,
There's
it's hard.
bonuses in both.
Yeah, it's hard waiting. It really is. But if you can do it, we have a friend. They just had their third, and for all three, they waited and for it to be a surprise for each one.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we're
yeah,
this far along now. I feel like we're not going to find out. It's definitely not going to be known until it's born, but I could see like when you're really early, the temptation being there for sure.
oh yeah, absolutely.
did you do that for the first baby?
Yes, we did. Yep,
Oh
we did
okay.
that. So that was kind of my wife was really interested in doing that, and I didn't really have an opinion one way or another. But now I am glad we did it that way. And it's fun. I mean, it's different because especially like you were saying, Josh, like a lot of people want to have want to know what it is for obvious reasons. We have two friends down the road from us that did that literally like 5 months ago, but it's cool to go in and not know. I mean, it's just a different kind of feeling when you're going in there.
Yeah,
No,
it's awesome.
I would be freaking out. I would want to know as soon as possible. Yeah, no babies on
No.
the way yet. Just dogs
That's
and a
all right.
cat. So
Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
dogs and cats. I got mine
yeah,
laying down here somewhere, right behind me.
yeah.
but how's your off season so far?
It is slow. Not a lot happening. It's like this. Even when I was doing radio, it's the same thing. Like it goes
Mhm.
from 100 miles an hour for 7 months to just a complete and total stop. And then even if you make the playoffs, that's how it is. And then it's just over. And there's like locker clean out day and those kind of things, but they're pretty quick after the season ends. And then it's uh, little events here and there, like partnership things that we have for the Penguins that I'll do, or um, my own type of stuff that I've gotten involved with, like charity wise in the Pittsburgh area, and then otherwise free agency, the draft, development camp will be late July, or I think like right after July 4th here or something.
Mhm.
So that kind of stuff, but then it's pretty slow just until the things really get going in mid-September.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what we were just talking about too. Is that like we got spoiled with having these playoff runs, and these last 2 years we're just like, what do we do for the month
Yeah.
of May? Like,
Especially
bored.
watching the first round. Like the first round, I mean,
Yeah.
this year the first round kind of sucked, but like normally the first round's awesome. Like 2 years ago, it was incredible.
Hmm.
So I feel like you always watch the first round if you're not in it, and you're like, wow, this is brutal.
Yeah.
Um, but it is what it is. I'm not saying I'm getting used to it because I definitely am not, but it was easier this year to like accept that they weren't in it, especially because they had that late run. But I mean, realistically,
Writing was on the wall.
we all kind of
Yeah.
thought that that was not likely. And then, I mean, the year before that was the real kick in the nuts. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And our podcast has only been on for 3 seasons, and we got kicked out in the first round, and we haven't made the last two. So we
Yeah.
have no idea what to do during the off season
Yeah.
now. So
well, in a way, you've had your toughest days already, then, right? Like,
Yeah. It's
I'm
true.
starting to think
that's
our
one way to look at
podcast
it.
is the jinx. We might have to stop it.
I mean, if you started it last year, I would say yes, it probably is. But at least you got a playoff run.
Yeah,
That's true.
well,
That's fair.
define run. Well, let's talk about some jinxes because you've been known to throw out the occasional jinx pre-game, dude.
I know. You guys.
You scare the
I
heck
la-
out of me every game.
I will say that I don't really look at Twitter that much during games. Like I really don't. But I think it's because I've interacted with you guys before. It like comes up at the top of my feed. So I like whenever I don't even know what I've said sometimes, and you're like, Jetsy, the jinx, and I'm like, what did I even say? Like I don't. So I don't. I don't believe in those kind of jinxes. I definitely have some superstitions. I'm definitely going to just go on the record and say that anything I say out there, I'm not trying to jinx. I'm just presenting as fact most of the time. Unfortunately, that does tend to be an announcer jinx. But I'm not out there to sabotage the Penguins. If anything, I'm out there to sabotage the other team. That's why I suddenly throw the shutout word in there when the unfortunate amount of times they had been getting shut out this year after two
I've noticed
periods.
that.
Yeah, so I mean, you have fun with it, but I definitely am not trying to jinx anybody. I really am not. I promise.
Yeah, that's
Oh
fair.
man.
I mean, like you said, it's inevitable. It is this like unwritten rule type announcer jinx thing that's out there. Like it's
Oh
all the
yeah.
time, all the time.
I mean,
Um,
there are some absurd ones, right? Like if it's a field goal and a guy like Justin Tucker, for example, I kind of cringe every time I'm watching the NFL and he's about to kick a field goal and Jim Nantz, whoever's calling the game, is like, "Oh, Justin Tucker has never missed a field goal less than 40 yards away," and it's like, I mean, eventually the guy's going to miss, and like that's going to be because that one time you said that. So that I understand what you guys are saying there, but I don't
Right.
know. Those are such definite examples that I don't know.
I don't think
yeah,
it was
that's fair.
you who said it during a broadcast. It was something about like Crosby playing all 82 games this season. And it was
No,
like, oh,
I would never say. No.
well, it was something. It was like, oh, they're on pace or whatever. And I was like, don't you ever say that ever again. Like, it wasn't you. I know it wasn't, but I
It's
knew it
probably
was
ESPN.
something. It was almost like it's probably ESPN. Throwing a little shade at ESPN. Um, yeah, so it's just what are your superstitions as a broadcaster? And how do you avoid the jinxes and how do you avoid people like us on Twitter freaking out?
Well, first of all, I never avoid people on Twitter purposely, but I don't look at Twitter during the games because, let's be honest, it can be a pretty toxic place when the Penguins aren't winning, and it can be the greatest place in the world when they are winning. So I just have decided that there's no real reason to be on there, period. I mean, and honestly, when the game's going on, I'm not really looking at my phone. I'm doing, obviously calling the game, but in between periods, you're looking at stats and you're talking to the producer and getting little nuggets together for what we're going to talk about the next period and everything. So I don't have a ton of time to even if I wanted to really peruse and see what's going on there. But I would say superstition wise, I mean, I don't know how many I actually have that are things that I have to do every game, but I mean, I have Mike Lang's the egg timer that stayed with me. Like that's always going to be in front of me. I always set that up. I have so when I do my broadcast boards, the last thing that I do before I put them in my notebook to bring them in is I'll like kind of just something I've been doing forever. Like even before I was doing hockey and other sports, like anything, I just kind of put my hand over the guys' names and just run down say their names like over top of whatever the number is. So it'd be like 8, like Michael Bunting, like 10, Drew O'Connor, and just run through
Oh,
each team.
smart.
And then I go in reverse and do it, the names while just seeing no numbers. And then I'll say like Michael Bunting, number 8, Drew O'Connor, number 10. Like I do it for both teams, even though the Penguins, for the most part, it's not really any kind of it's more just like getting my wheels turning in my head, but for the other team, it gets things going. And then during warm up, a lot of times I actually learned this from Doc Emmerich that I'll just literally watch a few different guys, not to say their names, but to like use the verb when they pass or when they shoot, and use a different verb every time, like flicks it, sends it, tips it, launches it, passes it, pushes it, nudges it, bumps it, like all that kind of stuff, just to get those words kind of going in my head too. So, see, announcers, we have warm up too. We're not breaking a sweat, at least not at this point in my life. But I'm definitely enjoying that part of it to get loose and get my wheels turning in my head and kind of get everything in order before the game starts.
That's sick.
There is
I
a
mean, because like,
lot more to broadcasting than I thought there was.
yeah,
No, we definitely
honestly,
don't
well,
just show up. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
because that's one thing that like I was always super impressed with. That like not only you, but like everyone, like Doc Emmerich and all these other guys, literally every time someone touches the puck, the name is out immediately, and it's like, okay, like how'd you even see the number from there? Like I can't even see it on TV, and we're sometimes closer, and so that's impressive. And then like what you were just saying about like that thing that Doc like kind of mentioned about the different verbs, that's like that's one thing that I've always loved about Doc is that like it's
Oh yeah.
different
Yeah.
every time. So the fact that like he practices that and now that's something that you do, like that's really cool. I love
Yeah,
that.
I spent a month with him basically in Vancouver in the 2010 Olympics when I was in my junior year of college. I was lucky enough to get selected to do like a kind of like a internship slash the position was called runner. So it was a glorified intern essentially. But I got assigned to Vancouver with NBC men's ice hockey. I was very lucky. That was all random. I mean, that was what I hoped for in my interview and I talked about, but I could have been assigned to alpine skiing and it still would have been awesome. But I got men's ice hockey and I literally worked with Doc and Edzo, Bill Patrick. I don't know if you remember him. He used to be a studio host. I think even with Versus when they first came on, he was there. Jeremy Roenick, Mike Milbury. I'm trying to think of who else. Kenny Albert, AJ Malesko was there. So that was like the group that I was with, and we were there. I was there a month, and I kind of just picked Doc's brain, and that was one thing that he told me he always does. And he had this giant notebook of verbs. I don't keep that, but I do that similar type of thing to just get those words going, like I said in my head. And I consider that to be a pretty fortunate situation, obviously, that I was with him for that long. But then, obviously, to a handful of years later, get Mike Lang as a person that I could talk to and learn from and pick things up from, or just even get advice from, whether you use it or not. Those guys are the top of their craft. So you take what they have to say and you at least listen to it. Whether or not you apply it is up to you.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool, and I mean that's one thing that you always hear about. People that are in like your roles, like the broadcasters. It was someone that they shadowed, that they were able to pick up some nuggets, not so much by asking for it, but just by watching.
Right.
And that's like so cool, and that's like what launches everyone. Just because if you just grab just a little bit from those types of guys, like it's going to propel your career. So that's really cool to hear. Especially, I mean, I know you're two years now into just the TV side of it, but I mean, like you're already like a seasoned pro with everything, so you don't need me to gas you up.
I was gonna say
But
thanks. Wow. Send you a check after this.
He was like, no, continue.
yeah, keep it going. Okay. So just now, just transitioning to the Penguin side of things, like you're talking about with the off season being slow right now, and I mean, technically, I think it's the draft prospect training camp thing that's going on right now, right?
Yeah, this
I think
week is
that's
a
this
combine.
starting up combine. Yeah.
Yep.
So like one thing that like, we talked about it on our show, like we wish like the NHL would like try to like hone in on the prospects more than like kind of imitate what the NBA and NFL does. Like bring these guys to light more so that like we know who they are, like leading up to the draft, even before the combine. Because to be honest, like I don't know much about any of these guys.
Right.
So like I wanted to kind of pick your brain. Like, do you know anything about like what we should be expecting? Do you know any of these prospects? I know we don't have a first round pick, but I mean, we also know Dubas is, lethal on draft night. So we have no idea what's up his sleeve. So any insight that you are aware of?
Well, the only thing that is the obvious is the slam dunk is Macklin Celebrini will go number one to San Jose. It's actually, I think that I was cheering for that when it was down to them in Chicago, not because of any anger towards Chicago, like I know a lot of people have. It was more just like the Sharks needed that, man. Like we were out there this year. That was the 10-2 game. That was one of the worst NHL rosters I have ever seen. From calling a game, and I'm sure they would admit that, and anybody else who you talk to that did one of their games would probably say similarly. Like that team is in the lowest possible stage of a rebuild. But when you get a guy like Macklin Celebrini, who is a Bay Area kid, by the way, and they all play for the Sharks, that's a cool tie-in. His dad actually works for the Golden State Warriors. So that there's like a cool connection there. And I think just that whole aspect of being a hometown guy, like, listen, we saw the Shark Tank when it was at its peak in 2016 with the Penguins. I've also seen it this past year when it was at its lowest. And that's a great hockey market when they're going. San Jose was awesome. One of the better atmospheres I've been in when we were there in the final in 2016. So I think that's great for him. And they obviously have Will Smith too, the kid from BC, who I think they got fourth overall last year, who really tore it up with the Eagles this year. So those two guys are great pillars for them as far as just young guys, both centers. They can build out from there, and you figure out the rest. But for at least the next 3 years, they have two young pillars to kind of build their team out from. But from the Penguins' perspective, I'll be honest with you, like I would be way more dialed in to the top flight prospects behind Celebrini, if not for the fact that the Penguins, as you said, Josh, don't have a first round pick. Like if they had a first round pick, yeah, I'd be all over it. We get this thing called the Red Line Report. It's like a scouts, essentially like spark notes on these guys. So we would get that. I would go all over that. I'd be up and down it, kind of learning all these guys that around their potential pick. Like if they had 14, yeah, I could probably tell you everything about the guys rated like 8 to 25. But it's just right now, it's kind of like, I agree with you. Anything is possible on draft night. It's very likely, in fact, that they figure something out to get back into the first round. But I don't foresee any reason to be like kind of really studying up. One thing that is good though for them is they have two picks in the top 50, which I mean, you look at it, this is a pretty deep draft. The exciting thing I think is that really with the NHL and youth hockey and college hockey and junior hockey right now, it's never been better. The skill level has never been better. The depths of these drafts, you're starting to see even right now. Like look at Logan Stankoven with Dallas. He was a mid to late first round pick. Ditto for Wyatt Johnston. Those kids are stars. Like, no pun intended. But like the aspect of that is really interesting to see these last couple of years. Like you'd see a third rounder, maybe you don't hear from them unless they're Jake Gensel for 5-6 years down the line until they're really a full-time contributing NHLer. Now guys are, maybe it's 1 year, maybe it's a half a year in the minors, and they're getting an opportunity and they're making the most of it. So I think two picks in the top 50, if that's all they end up having, as far as their higher end picks, that's great because you're going to get two kids that will at the very least be stars on their team going into next year, whether it's college, whether it's junior, just like Braden Yeager was this year and Owen Pickering. They will be stars. They will play a ton, and that's all you can ask for from a development perspective.
Now, you just spoke my next question, Owen Pickering and Braden Yeager. Are you expecting them to kind of make their NHL debut, or are they kind of going into the system? What do you think? What do you think is probably the most likely for those guys?
I think both are going to be given a long look in training camp, especially Yeager. I think everyone was kind of like, wow, like last year, at least I know I was. I had heard some stuff from a couple people I know that are out west, a couple guys that work for the Winnipeg Ice in the Western Hockey League that see him with Moose Jaw a lot. And they had said to me that this kid is a really, really underrated player and was a steal and all this stuff. But you're excited to hear that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, I see his frame. He's not exactly the most imposing kid. But man, you watched him, and I know you guys probably had a chance to see some stuff in the Memorial Cup, and we were able to watch him a few times on the road this year when Moose Jaw was just randomly on Sportsnet playing, and you could check him out. He's a really smart player. He's a really good player, and he's going to be an NHL player. I don't think he's going to be an NHL player to start this season. I don't know really what the game plan is because there is an opportunity he goes back to Moose Jaw and continues to play there. But the issue is if you go pro, he's got to be in either Wilkes or Pittsburgh. And I think going to Wilkes for a kid like that is not the worst thing in the world for a year. If he's the first line center in Wilkes, and then who knows, maybe somebody gets hurt throughout the season in Pittsburgh. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time it's happened. And he would come up and have an opportunity.
There's the jinx we're talking about. That's the jinx.
If I put, and listen, what is it, June 6th? If I put the jinx on June 6th, something that could happen in October, that I'm concerned about your mindset, Louie.
Dude, if Sid goes down,
hey, here's the other side of the Sid
bookmark
thing.
this.
Here's the other side of the Sid thing, just the reality of it. it's incredible that him and Gino have played back-to-back 82 game seasons. Like that's an
Yes.
anomaly.
It
That's an
is.
anomaly. It is. Just call it for what it is. It's amazing that they played it.
It is.
I think
Yeah.
the more amazing thing is that they played it and they missed the playoffs both years. Like if you would have said to me they missed
Oh
the
wow.
playoffs both years, I'd have been like, oh, Sid, maybe he played 50 games and Gino played like whatever 60 games. But no, they had him the whole way. But to go back to
Shoot.
Pickering, I think Pickering is he took some serious steps this year. He's a big guy. He's also a really lanky guy. I know from talking to people that his development's been a little slower than I think they anticipated it being, especially being a first round pick. Oh, did I lose you?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay, that's weird. Screen just went black for a second. Um, but as far as being a first round pick, I think the development's been a little bit slower. But you got to remember, he's a defenseman. I always
Mhm.
think back like defensemen. The exceptions are guys like Cale Makar. Like those guys are few and far between. Quinn Hughes, Luke Hughes, that come in and they're really, really good. I'm not saying Owen Pickering's going to be like that. He's not. That's not even his game. But there's very rare that you see a defenseman when they're 21, 22, 19, 20 in Pickering's case come into the league and have an immediate impact as a defenseman. Forwards, yes. Defensemen, it's a hard game. You're playing against men every single night. They're in on you on the forecheck. It's heavy, and I just don't think that it's a great situation for a guy like that to have to jump into this year. He is someone that I could see having the exact route that I'm not comparing them any more than the year they just had. A guy like Drew O'Connor had in Wilkes 2 years ago, where Drew was basically, they said, we want you to play in Pittsburgh. You need to be in Wilkes-Barre. We're going to put you on the top power play. We're going to put you on the first line. You're going to play 18, 19 minutes a night. Go. This is your moment to really improve. And he did. He took some massive strides and he's never looked back. I think Pickering, they're going to say, we're going to put you in the top pair. We're going to put you on the top PK. We're going to give you the matchup against every team we plays top line or top player or whatever. And we want to see you grow. And that's what's going to happen. Pickering is one guy I don't think we're going to see in Pittsburgh this year, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's going to be
Yeah.
because he's doing a really great job of developing his game in Wilkes-Barre. I'll be curious to see who the coach is there, and what
Yeah.
how that plays into it, because this is going to all be the Kyle Dubas chain of command. I mean, not that J.D. Forrest wasn't. He obviously was a really respected guy and did some incredible work with guys like Jonathan Gruden and Sammy Poulan when he came back. Um, Jack St. Ivany, he brought him along, but the guy that's hired there now is going to be 100% a Dubas hire. So that guy will be dictated by Kyle as to where Pickering slots, where Jaeger slots, where potentially this Koivunen, who was acquired in
Mhm.
the Gensel
Right.
deal, Ponomarev, who I feel, based on what I'm reading between the tea leaves here, has a real opportunity to be in Pittsburgh to start the year. That's kind of where they're at with some of these younger guys to potentially get a crack. At least the bigger
Okay.
names right now.
Now, just kind of since you mentioned it with the coaching staff down there in Wilkes-Barre, do you think that's why that Forrester wasn't retained? Like that was essentially because he wasn't a Dubas guy. Like I mean, you see this often, so like I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But like, it seemed like he had the respect of the locker room down there. So.
Yeah, and he and Sully were very close and had a good
Hmm.
rapport. JD, so I can't speak to other teams because I'm not at their development camps and I'm not at their training camps, but Sully would a lot of times during development camp and especially like 1 or 2 days in training camp, JD would run the practices. Like they thought that highly of him that he would jump in there and run the show. So I think that it seems like it's more of just a philosophical thing with Kyle and him. I don't think there's any bad blood. I think it is maybe
Okay.
just a simple matter of, whenever there's a new boss in a business, they generally kind of see how things go for a couple of years or a year, and then they make their decisions. And a lot of times they've already made their decisions regardless. I think it should be noted that JD has had a bare, and I mean bare, cupboard of prospects down there the last
Hmm.
couple of years, and he got them
Yeah.
into the playoffs this year. And
Yeah.
that says something. That's not easy to do The Penguins, routinely the last 5, 6, 7 years have been in the bottom 5 or 6 as far as their prospect pools have been concerned. So that's been reflected in their results of their farm teams. And I think it's a feather in his cap that he got them into the playoffs this year. I wish they could have. I think that if they would have gotten through Lehigh Valley in the first round, not that they would have beaten Hershey, who's loaded and looks like they're going right back to the Calder Cup final tonight, the last I checked, against Cleveland. They are a team that I think if they could have won a round, you never know. You get some guys coming in and they get an opportunity. So, yeah.
Yeah, we
That
got to
was
change
super,
the format of the
super
AHL playoffs.
disappointing.
I think Penguins would have won that in a 7-game series because went in overtime twice. I think
Twice,
in
yeah.
a 3-game series, which
is a
is
crapshoot.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you have a home, away, a home, and you go into overtime and lose in overtime twice. Penguins could have bounced back. They could have done something differently, especially mentally, knowing that this is the third game or whatever you want. Oh no, wait, they won 2, right? So it's 2
Yeah.
out of 3.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they lost
Yeah.
the first 2, and that was it. But it was. That's. I don't love that. I think best of 3 is like. I get it. I know why the AHL does it. It's different kind of revenue stream, but it doesn't really decide anything. Best of 5 at least gives you that extra win. Like 3 of 5 to me seems more legit than 2 of 3, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
I
know.
guess.
Wilkes-Barre, we almost sold out for the first game. Like almost everyone was there. So like imagine if that went 3 and went back.
Right.
Like that would have been awesome.
That would have been great. Yeah.
I know, but
Yeah.
Penguins probably could still been a guy probably could have still had his job at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean it's a fair point. If they advance, who knows?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Just so with AHL, they had their stud Bloomquist, the goaltender.
Yep.
Dubas mentioned that he expects to see like a push out of him in development camp and training camp and stuff like that. But now I saw a report that was kind of just like misinterpreted. Like it wasn't that he was guaranteed a spot in Pittsburgh, that it was, just kind of want to just see him develop. I mean, I kind of think financially it wouldn't make sense to keep Alex Nedeljkovic because, to be honest, like he played himself into a really good contract at the end of the year. And Bloomquist won like Rookie of the Year as a goaltender in AHL. Last time that happened was Matt Murray, and he was brought up immediately afterwards as well. So it just kind of seemed like I understand Dubas is trying to protect himself, but at the same time, like, I mean, come on, right? Like it just makes sense. So
yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I do think that there's some real legs to that because like you only have a couple more years guaranteed of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang. Like you want to maximize that. So if Yoel Bloomquist is your best option to maximize it, then he should be the goalie. I'm not so sure he is the best option right now, and I don't say that he's better than Tristan. I'm not saying that he's better than Ned. Not better, I should say. What I'm saying is, it's 1 year in the American League, and
fair.
he was great. Like you're right, good track record there with Matt Murray. What he did, what Marc-Andre Fleury did, similar stuff. But it's 1 year, and I just would hesitate to say, okay, this guy's going to be one of our 2, because if something were to happen to other goalie and he goes in, then it's all on him, and it's a lot to ask. My thing is, I think it'd be better if he's the guy in Wilkes again. You come back into this year, whether it's Ned, whether it's somebody else, whoever the other goalie is, they give that opportunity that he runs the show in Wilkes. But if there's an injury and if somebody goes down, this kid comes up, and who knows? Like it sets up to be an opportunity to be a really cool story, a la Matt Murray, like how it happened when he came up with Flower. So. Or actually, I think he came up when Jeff Zatkoff was hurt actually originally, and then ended up bouncing with Flower back and forth there in 2015-16. But either way, like I think that there's a real high ceiling there with this kid, and I'm excited to see more of him. but I just hesitate to say that he's the guy after 1 year. Although, like you said, the track record is there that these guys that have done this in the past have come into the AHL. Another one of those guys, by the way, is Stuart Skinner, who's playing in the Stanley Cup final in a couple days for Edmonton. So, but he's also had an up and down ride. And that's kind of, every goalie gives you a little bit of that, regardless of who they are. Even Shesterkin, remember when they wanted Jonathan Quick to start in New York in January? You didn't hear that anymore in May. So things are weird with goaltenders. I would say let it ride. He could potentially be the guy come March. Who knows? But I don't think he should be on opening night.
Do we bring Ned back?
I would, if the price works.
Yeah,
I like Ned.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's the thing with Ned. Here's the thing with Ned. So he's from Parma, Ohio. You may have heard us mention that 200 times on the broadcast this year, which is 2 hours west of Pittsburgh. So he's in his backyard. His family comes to every game. He's got a young kid. He's married. They live up in Wexford, Cranberry area. They come to every game. They have the kid there. Like, it's a good situation for him. And he played decently. And I say decently. The team played really well when he was in goal. If you look at his numbers, they weren't exactly like pop off the sheet incredible. Like his save percentage, if I recall correctly, was actually under 900 during that final stretch that he was in, which is not great. But they won games. He battled. The way he played goal was fun to watch, and I think the team responded in kind. So I thought it was pretty telling the last game of the year too, like that they were already eliminated when they hit the ice on Long Island, and he started. Like Mike Sullivan always says, like, you earn your start, you earn your ice. Like, to me, he was basically saying, like, you know what, we didn't get in, but we weren't even in this position without Ned. So he's starting the last game. And I wonder, like, I think the longer that it goes, the less likely it is he resigns, right? If he goes to July 1 and he's not with the Penguins, I mean, someone's going to resign him, or someone's going to sign him, whether it's as a starter or as a very nice salary as a backup with some term. He'll go somewhere. But I still am not closing that door either. I feel like there's a possibility he could come back.
Well, we have a recurring guest on our podcast, Donnie Harkins, who coached Alex Nedeljkovic when he was like in junior hockey. And he kind of said the same thing. Like, don't close the door on him coming back. Like, even though he was only on a 1-year contract, like you said, he's home. So like it kind of keep the options open there.
He has it good here. I think it was.
That's,
I think
So which is a fair point. And I just think, even from the start of the season for the Pittsburgh Penguins, it was kind of going back and forth with shutouts from Jari and Ned. So we in the beginning of the season, it looked really good. And I was like, man, we have probably the best tandem in the NHL. I mean, quickly that fell off. But
I mean, think about that. Before December, you had like 5 shutouts combined. Both guys had scored a goal. It was like the craziest thing ever. And obviously things changed.
You could have swore we were going to make the playoffs at that
time. That's why I didn't say it, Louie.
Maybe you did, good. And you didn't even know.
No, that word I would never say until it's clinched. Don't worry.
Yeah. So obviously the goalie situation, we got to figure that out. We got a pretty big thing coming July 1st. Do we re-sign Sidney Crosby as soon as the clock strikes 12:01 on July 1st? Do you extend him? How long? Do you give him the entire franchise and say thank you for your service? And what do we do? The guy's having probably back surgery for carrying this team this entire time. So I guess he's due to a little compensation there. Is there a rush to extend Sid? I
don't know. I think that, first of all, I agree with you. July 1, you should re-sign him. Yes. I don't think if they don't re-sign him that there should be a 10-alarm fire that goes off and people should be worried that he's going to leave. Like, I genuinely take him at his word. Take a deep breath. I don't think he's going to go anywhere.
If your jinxes, you think your jinxes get me all riled up. Imagine that. not signing Sid
Well,
on July 1. Anyway, continue.
I was about to say, yeah, like if you're worried about that, you might want to get a nice tasty beverage by your side just in case things don't go your way. But he he whether he signs July 1 or not, he's made it pretty clear to anybody who's ever asked him, whether it's national media, local media, doing a podcast, whatever, like he wants to be here. He wants to stay here. I think realistically what's going to happen, this is his last year, obviously, that he's going into right now. Um, I think he probably re-ups for two, and then it's a Bergeron type of thing where after two you revisit, maybe you go one with incentives and you're at a certain salary. It's also up to Sid, right? Like he said before, he doesn't know how much longer he's going to go for. Evgeny Malkin's under contract for another 2 years, counting this one coming up. Chris Letang's what, four more after this? So like those are his two best buddies. It's hard for me to believe he would hang it up before either of them. But I think in that 2 4 year range, you're really looking at probably the end at some point there. So that's why I think that there's no real panic. But I do think also like the Penguins kind of owe it to him for what he's done, aside from the Stanley Cups. To your point, Louis, what he did this past year, what he did the year before, the point per game seasons. We're going to potentially. Never mind, I won't finish that thought. But
Dude.
But I didn't finish it. I didn't say anything. But so here's the thing, though. But with what he's done,
That's
you need
clipped.
to bring in people that complement him better.
Yes.
You need to better give him an opportunity to succeed. I give Kyle Dubas a lot of credit. Last summer, he went out and he basically said, listen, we all probably sat here. Riley Smith, boom, great trade. He's that for a third round pick, please. He's going to light it up next to Gino, and he did in the first month of the season. It's like Lars Eller. Well, I didn't like him as a cap, but that's why I didn't like him because he's hard to play against. We got him. Noel Achari, ditto, hard to play against. Matt Nieto, speedy guy that can kill penalties. Ryan Graves, he was awful to play against on the New Jersey Devils. He was very frustrating. You thought, okay, he'll come in, he'll play alongside Letang, he'll take Dumoulin's spot. It'll be just the easiest rip-off of a Band-Aid ever. We know how that played out. So I think that a lot of those moves, and Erik Karlsson, when that trade went down, people were fist pumping. Like that was like we're back we're not just in the playoff mix, we're in the Stanley Cup contender mix.
Yeah, we mapped the parade. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think that offseason should give people a lot of thought going into this offseason that he's not going to be afraid to make moves like by the plentiful to try to restock this thing and figure this thing out. I don't think he's going to part with any assets, for future firsts or anything like that. I don't think he's going to part with Yeager or Pickering or Koivunen or Ponomarev. Like, I think those guys are going to be a part of the fold. If he's making trades, they're going to be hockey trades or they're going to be free agent signings. And there are some good free agents that could add a spark to this team that make a lot of sense. So that are not going to break the bank either. So I think that there are opportunities to get them back into a position where they could get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then, I hate to say that cliche, but once you're in, who knows? But really, if the last couple of years have proven anything, like once you're in, who knows? So.
Yep. Yeah, look at Florida. What, last year?
Right.
They
exactly.
just squeaked in and made the Stanley
Cup. Penguins screwing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why they
took
got
our spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this year, look at them now. So with that, wanted to ask, who do you think is going to win the Stanley Cup?
That was an impressive transition.
Thank you.
Sign them up.
Taking some notes, Josh. Taking some notes.
You do great. It's great stuff. I think that so. I want Connor McDavid to win the Stanley Cup.
Oh, dude,
the Florida Panthers are going to win the Stanley Cup, though. Like they're going to win. They are the.
At least you're based in reality.
They are the most well-constructed team that we have seen in a long time. Like, I don't know. Those 16, 17 Penguins teams were good. These guys are deep. They're mean. They have that physicality. They literally beat the crap out of you on top of beating you on the scoreboard. Like, Bobrovsky has found a playoff gear that we had never seen before last year. I guess you saw it a little bit in that year with Columbus when they swept Tampa, but he was more known as a guy that the big game was too much for him. That doesn't look to be the case anymore. They have an incredibly talented group of players. And I think, this is going to be so fun to watch because my opinion, they have a guy in Alex Barkov that we all know about. Like everyone who's seen him says, "Oh, he's the best player nobody talks about." Well, everyone in the world's about to watch him for, whatever, 5, 6, 7 games here. He is the best defensive forward in the NHL. Like since Patrice Bergeron is gone, there is no argument. I know they give the Selke to different people every year. Alex Barkov is the best defensive forward in the NHL. He also is a forward capable of scoring 50 goals. So I think that the players that he's gone toe to toe with in the playoffs here and shut down, that you didn't really even hear that much from in these series. Like think back, how many times did you hear Braden Point's name in the Tampa series? How many times did you hear Brad Marchand's name in the Boston series? How many times did you hear Artemi Panarin's name in the New York series? He shuts these guys down, and he's going to get his best test yet. There's no player even close to Connor McDavid, and I would even say Leon Draisaitl is better than all three of those guys I just mentioned too. So like those guys are going to be the biggest test he's ever gotten, but I think it's going to be so fun to watch because it's literally the best defensive forward against the best offensive forward, and as much as a lot of people love the excitement of offense, how many times does that go to the defensive player's way? It's like it's football, it's hockey, it's basketball, whatever. The team that defends better and is harder to play against generally ends up winning games. And I think it's going to be the Panthers in 6. I know that's the sexy pick is 6 games, but I think they'll win in 6. I actually think that it could be 4 or 5. I think they could potentially win easier if Skinner comes back to earth. He was unbelievable against Dallas in Game 6. If he comes back to earth, I think you got to remember, if not for Swayman, the Panthers would have won that series potentially in 5 games. Yeah. They lost Game 1. They would have potentially won the next 4. If not for Shesterkin, they would have swept the Rangers. It wouldn't even have been close. So these goalies have been the only reason the Panthers haven't coasted to the final. So if Stuart Skinner is not great, this will end quickly. If he is great, I still think the Panthers will win, but it may take 6 games.
Yeah, the only reason why I say 5 is because Oilers are going to get an overtime lucky goal. Like, that's the only reason. I don't think the Oilers have faced a physical team like the Panthers. So the Panthers are going to steamroll over Connor McDavid, and I think it's going to be humbling for a lot of people who are putting Connor McDavid as the greatest hockey player because he hasn't done much in these playoffs. I mean, yes, he had a beautiful goal that
was unbelievable.
It was a beautiful goal. I am not saying it wasn't. But before that, he was just playing the assisting roles. He wasn't really scoring any miraculous goals. Now he's coming up against a team that's all physical. No one's getting to that blue paint against Florida. So, like, the way Connor McDavid, he scored against Dallas, right? He was coming up to the blue paint. Kachuk is going to level him out. Like, there is no way Connor McDavid's getting that close. I honestly think Florida is just going to steamroll over these guys, and it's going to be a humbling experience for Connor McDavid fans.
Well, you're right, and I do agree with you. I think that if he tries to go to the net, he's going to be not welcomed. And the other side of it is, like, I'm sure you guys watched every game too. How many post-whistle scrums did you see in the Edmonton-Dallas series? Like maybe 2 over a 6-game series?
Yeah.
How many post-whistle scrums do you see per game in the Florida series? It's like 8 to 10.
Every whistle.
Yeah. So they're gonna have a totally different opponent. Dallas is a great team. I think Dallas actually would have given Florida a lot of problems. But not that I'm saying the Oilers won't give them some problems. I mean, you're in the final. You're one of the 2 best teams. Like, you deserve to be there. I felt the same way last year when Florida was there against Vegas. Like, they deserve to be there. You win whatever it is, 12 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You deserve to be in the Stanley Cup final. It doesn't matter who you beat, how you got there, whatever. You deserve to be there. You earn your way there. That's the beauty of this playoff and the beauty of winning the Stanley Cup. It's so hard to win. But I do think that this is a matchup where you just look at Florida and you're like, man, I mean, they don't have to change anything, and they're not going to. Like, they only know how to play one way. They're so well built. Like, their third line, what is it? Luosterainen, Lundell, and Evan Rodriguez, our old pal. Like that's a third line that
Erod.
is just a matchup nightmare. I keep looking at Edmonton and I'm like, I mean, uh, all due respect to like Dylan Holloway and those guys, like I don't see it. And also, Evander Kane is a big wild card here too. He got hurt in that last game against Dallas. He's one of the few guys that won't be afraid of anything that
True.
Florida
Correct,
tries to
yeah.
do. But it looked like he was hurt like pretty bad. I think he only played like 3 minutes in game six. So granted, he's had 5 6 days to do whatever they need to do, the voodoo magic to get him good to go for these games. But I still think like even if he's your one guy dragging you into the fight physically, I don't know. I don't see it. I like Florida to win the series, and I think it's great that McDavid. I think it's great for the NHL that he's in the Stanley Cup final. But I agree with you, Louie. You gotta get kicked back down a peg before you truly reach the top. It's happened to so many great players. He'll just, if he doesn't win this year, he'll just be the latest one. I mean, it happened to Sid, like it happened to Obi. As far as the recent guys, it happened to Stamkos. Like all these great players, they had to have their moment where they got knocked back before they got to the top. And he very well could win, but he also very well could have his moment here coming up in the next couple weeks.
Sid
let's
Lawson,
just-
youngest
Yeah.
captain to win the Stanley Cup. Just saying.
Yeah.
That already has passed for Connor McDavid.
Oh yeah,
Just
no.
wanna say.
I mean, Sid is a markedly better leader.
I have to
and-
throw out these Crosby's better than McDavid little quotes because this is a transition into one of our last things we want to talk to. Josh, did you have something to say before I go into
Nope.
it?
No, you
I
guys
ruined my own
covered-
transition, which is fine.
Yep.
Um,
Go for it.
So I want to talk about hockey hot takes. All right. My
Go.
hot take, if you couldn't get the temperature coming from this side of the screen, was that Connor McDavid isn't the best hockey player in the NHL. That's my hockey hot take.
So who is?
I say it's Sid, but that's just me being a homer. Well, no, listen. I mean, I honestly think he's one of the best 200-foot players in the league. Connor McDavid has his speed. You take away his speed from him, yeah, maybe he's a top 20 player in the NHL, but he's not the number one. So I'm not saying he doesn't have hands. There's a lot of skilled hockey players out there on the ice. But if you're looking for an overall complete hockey player, how can you not look at Sidney Crosby and go, that is the greatest hockey player of all time, especially getting 16 straight point per game seasons. Wayne Gretzky,
Isn't he at 19?
I think it's
What
at
did I say?
19, Louis.
Yeah.
Did I say
16?
16?
16.
You-
That was the
you
playoff
cut
run
off
before we
somewhere.
lost.
Yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
the
see, I got
That's
these
true, that
numbers
was
in
the
my head,
playoffs,
dude.
yeah.
I was a little heated. Sorry, 19,
Well-
and he's gonna go ahead.
I mean, Sid also was. Remember, he was this year, like as of 3 months ago, voted by the players as the most complete player. So to your point, the guys that he's actually playing against every night still think that he is the most complete player in the NHL. I so I don't think that means the best. I know that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
I think most complete is the guy that can do everything, and he can do it at an extremely high level. Like he's full 200 feet. He's blocking shots when he's a goal away from 500 a couple years ago. Like just trying to get his team victories. Like he does everything. He wins faceoffs. He had a historically good faceoff year this year, which kind of flew under the radar even for him. Um, but I think like the best player to me when I watch, I still see nobody as um, when he's going. That's a huge when he's going. Nathan McKinnon. To me, still think he's the best player in the league. Like as far as
Oh,
the
so you
actual,
think McDavid is second to
yes,
McKinnon?
yes, I think
Love
McKinnon.
that. Yeah, great.
McKinnon. I just think McKinnon like McDavid. You're right. He has that straight line speed that's insane. There's nobody else really like that in the NHL. But McKinnon's like violent when he skates. Like his
Yes.
body's like kind of out of control, but he's so strong, and he's got the cup. He's got the World Juniors. He's got a lot of things like Sid, and he probably will be teammates with Sid and Connor on Team Canada and this Four Nations coming up next February. But I think that to me, the more that I watch him, he to me is the best the best player, most dominant player in the league. That's just my opinion. But yeah,
I like that. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, he does like stomp the ice when he's
Yeah, he
skating.
does. Yeah.
It's awesome to
That's a
watch
good way to
because you're
put
like
it. Stomps the
no
ice.
way
Yeah.
is that big man skating so fast. Like he is a
Right.
bigger dude.
Yeah,
And he
he's built like Sid. He's just taller than Sid. Like they're
yeah.
both like wider guys that have huge legs and they're really strong lower bodies. But I think McKinnon's like 6'2" or 6'3", and Sid's like 5'11". So there's like a significant height difference for him.
Unreal. But
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Sid is under 6.
Yeah, I'm
How come
pretty
I
sure.
never?
Well,
I've
maybe he is 6, but it's one day it's 6, one day it's 5'11".
oh
That's like it's like how I am. Depends where I'm
yeah
standing.
yeah
If I'm on an incline, I'm 6 foot.
yeah. I feel that. Yeah.
So that's my
So
hot take. Josh, what's your hot take?
well, I didn't know we were doing hockey, so sorry I didn't come prepared with my hockey
I
hot take. But
threw a
like,
curveball.
yeah, you
Yeah, I
did throw a
know.
curveball on me. But
Sorry.
like, what I was gonna say, just in general, like, I think coffee is overrated. Like, I do not
Wow.
like
As
coffee.
a
Yep,
father
same.
of three.
Yep, yeah, I don't like it. Don't like the taste. I like waking myself up in the morning. I feel like that is what will last you with energy longer. So yeah, that's my thing. I think the smell is nasty. Everything about it is just gross. That's why my wife wakes up at 5 a.m. so that she can take care of all that nonsense, and then I'll be up at 5:30. We'll be good to go. We'll
Do you
fine.
drink
Wow.
energy drinks?
No, nope.
Wow, so you're all natural with your energy.
Uh, I mean, I'll have sugar and
Yeah, well, yeah,
soda,
right.
but like, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not like pumping with caffeine. So
I love coffee, but I also went through a phase like for a long time where I'd go like 5 months in a row with drinking coffee and then one day would just stop for like 5, 6 months and then one day
Oh,
again would start. Now, when my son was born, I started again and I haven't stopped now for 3+ years. And based on what's happening in a month and a half from now, I'm definitely not
yeah,
stopping anytime soon. Uh, but I like it. I also very much realize that I don't have a good palate for coffee because like I like the bagged Starbucks or Tim Hortons or whatever. And then if I go to a coffee shop and get the same kind of coffee, to me it's like very sour and acidic and I don't really like how it tastes, even though that's probably like the better coffee, so to speak.
yeah,
So I don't know. I can respect that because I know people that don't drink coffee. We just had some friends in town this past weekend, and is one of my wife's best friends has a 3 month old and not a coffee drinker, still doesn't drink it, and
wow.
I respect that. That's their
power
choice,
to her.
but
Love it.
um, I could not do that. So
Do
good for
you
you
drink your
guys.
coffee black or do you put like cream in it?
I drink it black. Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
man, I can't do that. Can't
Yeah.
do that.
I like a
That's
dark roast
rough.
black. That's what I do. Yeah.
Wow,
Oh
Except
dark
wow,
roast
except when
black?
we're yeah, except when we're in Canada, I get Tim Hortons double doubles, and that's the move. So two
Okay.
cream, two sugars. So
got it.
Any local places you tried here in
coffee
Pittsburgh?
wise, yeah. So two of my favorites are in, like I said, I'm in Lawrenceville, so I'm kind of partial to those only because I'm not really like seeking out coffee shops around the city. Those two are walkable for me that I'm about to say. But the first is Espresso Imano.
Okay.
Really good on Butler Street, lower side of Butler Street in Lawrenceville, like on the way down towards the Strip District. And then further up in the 50s, we just had a Mediterra open here, and there's a
Oh,
couple other
nice.
locations. I really like their food, but I like their coffee too. And I've started in the last couple of years to get into cortados. Speaking of sugar and caffeine, so they have a good cortado. So does Espresso Imano. Those are two places that I like.
I highly recommend Commonplace.
Oh yeah, we've been there too. The one in
So,
close to East Liberty, I've been to that one, which I like too, right near the Permanis. So
okay, yeah,
yeah,
Southside works. That's kind of where I'm at all the time. So,
okay.
definitely, yeah, you got to recommend Commonplace. Josh, you'd be missing out on all this because great coffee,
They
great
sound like
food.
nice places.
They are. They're great
If they have
You could
places.
get like
Great
food,
a,
I'll
places.
still visit.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say you could get like a sandwich. Like we'll
yeah,
just
You
drink the
could.
coffee.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. My wife and I, we go on coffee dates all the time. She gets the coffee, I get the sandwich. Like, yeah,
There you
it's
Perfect.
go.
all good.
Smart.
Yeah,
Good move.
yeah, yep. So you're up,
Wait,
Josh.
hot take.
All right,
Hockey or
hot take.
non-hockey? We could.
Yeah, because he
Um,
threw this curveball.
hockey hot take would be that I don't know how hot this is, but I'm going to go with it. I feel strongly about this. The delay game penalty is the dumbest penalty and should be like puck over the glass and should be taken out of the penalties. Like rule book just should not be a thing. I think it's a I think it's actually a pretty smart play when you think about it. If a team's really hemming you in and pressuring you
Mm-hmm.
and you clear it over the glass and out of play, the faceoff stays in your zone. It just doesn't it stops the play. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but I feel like sometimes I'm more talking about like if there's a bouncing puck and a guy tries to bat it and it catches a weird end of their stick and flies over the glass and then it's a penalty. Like to me that stuff is so stupid, and I understand why they put it in because it does kind of eliminate any of the stuff I just talked about with the easy, clears and all that kind of stuff, but I don't love it, and I wish that it would not be in the game, and that's my hot take.
Do you think they should add an intent layer? Like it should be up to the referee's judgment if that was an intentional delay of game, like what you're saying, like they're
Yeah.
tired, they're in their zone, they just came off of an icing, they need a change, so just chuck it,
Yeah, it's a fair question. My thing with that would be then you're tiptoeing into kind of the goaltender interference gray
Yeah,
area type of thing where it becomes
true.
subjective. Like I'll tell you guys this on a separate thing. We got told this at the broadcast meetings a couple years ago. Icings. A lot of people get confused by icings. I even hear watching the national broadcast, sometimes they say why an icing was called and they're wrong because we were told in the meetings that these guys were in what
Shout him out,
icing
Josh.
is.
Come on.
Well, I'll just say, like, I don't understand why
He's just
everyone
like
was in the,
ESPN is wrong.
well, it's so they describe it wrong. They describe it wrong. This is what I mean. Basically, like, okay, so the linesman makes a judgment call on an icing. So if there are two players coming after a puck, where the circles and the dots are in the defending zone, where the puck's coming down into, it's supposed to be once they hit those dots, the linesman's judge as to which player could get to the puck first. If it's the defenseman, it's icing. If it's the attacker, it's not icing. So sometimes you'll see like the defenseman is coming at the puck, like it's hard to show in like a small screen, but the defenseman's maybe coming down the left wing to the puck, which is behind the net, closer to the right side of the net though, and the forward's coming down the right side. They would probably wave it off, even if it was neck and neck, because the linesman would probably, his gauge would be, well, the forward's probably going to get to the puck first. But it's always the probably, and like I think, and that's kind of goes back to what I said. Like I feel like there's a lot of that with goaltender interference, and there's that would become a thing too with the puck over the glass, where it's like, oh, I think he didn't mean to do that, and he wasn't really trying to clear the puck over the glass, but he did. So if that's the penalty, you got to call that. So that's my long tangent of again giving you my hot take.
Yeah, I like it.
That's fair. One thing one thing about the UFL, I want to make sure I get this right. They have a super challenge. I was watching this over the weekend.
Okay.
You could super challenge any penalty. Okay, so would you like to see that into the league? So if you see goaltender interference or whatever, or you could super challenge it, and you could say like, no, it definitely wasn't, or whatever. I mean, a lot of things are reviewed, but I'm trying to see, would that help if you're like, I want to super challenge that delay of game because it definitely was by accident. There was no way or whatever. How many times do we see where the puck, they hit the sticks at the same time, puck goes up, they call it a delay of game? You could super challenge that and say, hey, you got to look at it. Nope, it wasn't delay of game. We want the ice back. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think that it would only be certain things, though, like to your point, they would really fall under the category because you can challenge, like an offside. You can challenge goalie interference. They do a official review now with high sticks, like to make sure that it's not my stick on top of yours that hits me in the face because you lifted my stick and they call high stick. So there are a lot of things that they still review. But a trip, like I've seen a lot of calls where a guy literally steps on a puck and another guy's stick is in the vicinity and they call tripping. That would be a good example of like maybe something you
Yeah.
take a closer look at. So I don't think that it's a bad idea. I do think that you run into a situation where if you have everything be subject to a review, you're turning more into baseball what it used to be, in the sense of just the speed of the game would be so much slowed down. And I know they love to embrace the speed of hockey and the flow of the game and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think that the more stuff that you have capable to be reviewed, the more likely you are to have delays in your game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Just an idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad one.
All right. And what's your normal hot take?
Normal hot take. Let's see here.
People who don't drink coffee are the worst. No, I'm just kidding.
I have a few actually. Now, okay, I got to think about this. So,
A few.
one of my, I don't know how much of a hot take again this is. This is just a preference thing. I am not a huge fan of people who have to be on their the speakerphone in public for a conversation. It's a big pet peeve. I guess it's more a pet
Yeah.
peeve than
No,
a
no,
hot
no,
take.
no. Yeah, you
But
win this. You win.
I
it.
just
Yeah.
don't understand it. Like, I don't get why, if you're walking in the grocery store down the aisle, you're like talking like this when you could be talking like this. Or, you're in like a public area, like a park or whatever, and you're like yelling on speaker. Like, I don't understand that. And I personally don't want other people to hear my conversations. Not that I have anything to hide. It's just like, it's my conversation. But I've never understood that. So I would say that's my hot take, that I find that to be one of the most annoying, like, just social acts that a person could do.
Yeah, and it's becoming more commonplace. That's like and I think that's why it's okay being a hot take, because it is now happening so much more than it was. Like before it was like, oh, my speaker is broken, so like by my ear, so like I have to do it. And now it's like,
or you see them doing something, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But people just walking down the street yelling in their phone, and I told them this and I told them that. I'm like, calm down. Just put your phone up to your ear. Relax.
Right. Or like
you can still yell at them.
Right. Or just get like earbuds. Like, it's not.
Yes.
I don't know. It's not that hard.
Yeah. It's a lot. I see a lot of it. But that's a great hot take. I think you're 100% right. I think you win this little challenge, because that's dude.
It's all about competition.
I turned it into one, because that was it. That was the winner right there.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, I hate that. You have no idea how much I hate that. That's a good one. But
I haven't thought about that.
Josh, thank you so much for coming on this silly little podcast. I appreciate it. It's not a Penguins season without you coming on this show. We've been on this for 3 seasons. You've been on for each one. We appreciate it. You're like part of the family, which I appreciate. Yeah, we just need to have you on. Like, we got to get you on more. We are on at the worst times. First of all, you can never come on because we go on right after the game. You're working, so there's a little. You literally sign off. You hand it back to Dan or whatever in the studio, and that's when we go live. So there's no way.
But maybe if it was a national game or something, then maybe I could figure out some time to jump on with you guys.
When those bums at ESPN, all right, when they don't know what icing is.
Yeah, when they're messing up icings, I'll come on with you guys and just vent. The old man yelling at the cloud for like 2 hours.
Yeah. That's
what
right.
We do. That's what we do.
We just say, welcome to the podcast, Josh Getzoff, and you're like, that wasn't even icing, dude. Wasn't even icing.
That play back in the first period, 2 minutes gone in the game.
That's not even goaltender interference. They're explaining delay of game wrong. Does ESPN even know about hockey? All right.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I know. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But all right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You said you have some organizations that you and your wife work with. What are those? What can you plug in here? What can you tell the people about?
Oh, thanks. So we're both members of the Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh, Children's Trust, which is doing some great things. They are raising. It's basically a group of young professionals in Pittsburgh, and we get together, we work with the doctors there, we hear them out on research that they're doing, clinical trials that they're doing for kids and stuff like that to help them. And we basically you do some votes, you do some fundraising, you donate money towards these causes, and they've made some advancements. They just had an event. I think it was 3 weeks ago, where they donated to a researcher at Children's $150K. So they've been doing some great stuff. It's really cool to be a part of it. And we were, like I said, again, we're in Lawrenceville, so it's right up the hill from us. We see it every day that we're driving around here. So it's cool to be involved in that. And then just stuff throughout town. Like I got involved this year with the Boys and Girls Club of Western PA, and actually emceed their gala for the first time. It was like a fundraising gala that they had at PPG Paints Arena, ironically enough. So I was part of that with them. They're a great group, and looking forward to doing more stuff with them. And like I said, we're going to table that deck hockey tournament until next year. But we'll come back bigger and better with that, and with 2 kids. So a little bit more chaos happening, but all good, and looking forward to the rest of the summer here. And I keep thinking, okay, it's June. It was April 17th at one point, where it felt like the season had just ended, and I knew how long it was going to be. And now it's like, okay, well, it's mid-June next week, so it's not that far away. And the draft will help. We'll get the schedule at the end of this month too, so that'll start to make things feel real too, and be starting to get back at it soon enough, hopefully.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Well, Josh, again, thank you so much for hopping on. We really do appreciate it. Like Louie said, this silly little podcast that you get to, grace your presence on. So I do appreciate it. And with that, if you wouldn't mind doing our sign off, that would be great. It's just let's go Pens. So whenever you're ready, Josh, thank you.
That's it. Just let's go Pens. All right.
As always,
let's go Pens.